What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. I am Jack Allen. First, go follow me as always at Kojak Podcasts on all the socials. And you want to support the show, I got all the links and all that stuff. But so today I'm very excited. So I've been following quick backstory. I followed this account and he'll tell you the actual Twitter handle because I don't want to mess it up. But I remember either seeing it used to be it was a pun on the Epic Times religion. Who is that? Regardless, but so that's how I first ran into you, Jim Jones. So thank you for coming on the show, dude. Could you tell everybody where they can find you, just so they're bored on Twitter right now, and a little bit about yourself?
All right, my name is Jim Jones. And my Twitter handle is at Juche Kool-Aid, and I'm just a schizo posting shit poster who likes conspiracy theories and communism.
I love it, dude. And what was your what was your? I guess not the handle, but your profile. It was what it was making fun of.
Oh, are you talking about Jimmy Falun Gong?
Yes,
Oh,
Falun
that's
Gong.
not me.
Yes.
I wish that was me. That dude is
Oh,
amazing.
that wasn't your account? I thought you had for
No,
a while. I thought you changed your name for because I thought you changed your name before, but maybe I was wrong on that. But
I can't.
regardless, it doesn't matter. It doesn't
I'm
matter.
flattered. You think I'm Jimmy, bro? Jimmy's awesome.
No, dude, I've been following your account. You're great too. So I find this like fascinating because so you self-identify as a communist, but you like conspiracies. So tell everybody, I guess, how you just this is where you fell on the political spectrum.
All right, so I guess it probably goes back to when I was like, I'd say probably like 13 or 14. I was in like junior high and we had to take like a computer science class. And instead of like learning how to do like spreadsheets, I was just watching like conspiracy theories back when YouTube was good
Yeah.
before they took everything down. So I
Right.
just remember, I don't like them anymore, but I remember being like 14 years old and watching like a Alex Jones documentary, like
Okay.
what was it? Is this 9/11 one? Or maybe no, I got that confused with Loose Change. I
Yeah.
watched Loose Change, and then I think his like New World Order one was talking about like the police state, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. But that's how it started. But like
Okay.
a lot of people start off with like 9/11
Yeah.
when they get older. But like when ever since I was a kid, I was always I was always watching shit on like History Channel and Discovery Channel back when they had good TV with like ghosts and aliens and
Yeah.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was like my first foray, being a little 4 year old watching like Hunt for Bigfoot and
I
Area
love it.
51 stuff, and then it was just a natural progression. And then it's embarrassing to say, but when I was in college, me and my boys, because I was in a fraternity,
All right.
we would get really high, and then we'd watch like 10-hour lectures by David Icke.
No, that is
Yeah,
hilarious, dude.
I was lizard people pilled for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. So you started kind of the normal, I guess, like trajectory we all start. We like watch Zeitgeist or
Yep.
9/11 movies, and you slowly fall into it. So obviously you came to you became a communist or whatever. That sounds like so silly, but obviously you identify as a communist. How did you? Because all conspiracies, right? That is the end goal of all conspiracies is a one world
Ah,
Marxist government. So
yeah.
how do you justify the two
Okay.
or whatever rational whatever?
So here's the thing, right? That is a lie. That is
Ooh,
it is like a what's deflection, right?
yeah,
Deflection. Because when I started doing, researching conspiracies, it always came back to why is the CIA so involved with stopping communism? Why are they killing millions of people, doing all this, saying like, especially like Red Scare back in the Cold War, they were labeling all their political, I mean, even like regular old liberals and
mm,
sometimes even like just normie conservatives, they were communists, ruining their careers and stuff. So that got me thinking. But I guess I saw that one guy who posted under your tweet earlier talking about the Great Reset
yeah,
and how it was communism. No, 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 no. The Great Reset is in a Marxist opinion would be the natural conclusion of capitalism. Once capitalism grows so big and it starts to slow down and stagnate, they gotta, in order for capitalism to survive, it has to evolve. So they're going for this like hyper monopolistic, um, technocratic, low-wage police state where, the saying is you will own nothing and be happy.
Mm.
And basically that's what that is. Now, I can see where like a lot of people on the right, especially like the libertarian right, where they would confuse the two, because I mean, like if you do read our books and stuff, it does talk about an international workers state, workers government, and stuff like that. But it's very different.
So I can like see that. Like I could accept that if communist, because we feel, I'm sure we feel very similar about the CIA, and we all know they were willing to sell crack cocaine and
Yep.
heroin to fund this war against communism. So I could get along with like okay, there's a goal to harm any communistic state, and I totally agree how they labeled everybody who was leaning more nationalistic, like the guy in Guatemala and the guy and people in Afghanistan, all the Congo, all these people they would label communists. They weren't real, they were nationalistic. They weren't communists. So
Yeah.
I could get along with that. But how do you, or so I see on your profile, you say you're a Stalinist.
Yep.
What does Stalin do that the other guys don't, that you think, makes him the best leader, however you want to describe that?
Oh, well, mainly he defeated the Nazis almost basically single-handedly, because it wasn't until the end of the war
Yeah.
that I'm not bashing America here. They did put up a good fight against Hitler, but 27 million Soviets lost their life on the Eastern Front. They defended Stalingrad and Leningrad from Nazi invasion. Basically, you'd have platoons of men. One guy would have the rifle, and the guy behind him wouldn't have one. So when the guy in front got shot, you picked up his gun and started shooting, because they didn't have any weapons or ammo at that point. But they managed to hold out. So and then plus, if you read Stalin's really easy to read, and he's really to the point. Plus,
I saw
Man
somewhere
of Steel.
that Stalin was like a nationalist as well, more than a communist. As he differed greatly from his people who followed him. Do you agree with that or no?
Yes and no. Because there's we call them like left comms, so left wing communists, so they're more left than I would be traditionally.
Oh,
And they just say that, like, Stalin betrayed the revolution because Stalin was a Russian nationalist. He wanted to be like a new czar. So that couldn't be farther from the truth. The Soviet Union, especially under Stalin's time, was very democratic, and they had Congress talking about this. Their Congress in the party would have in-depth discussions, and they call him a nationalist because Stalin's decided for socialism in one country, because at the end of the war, the Soviet Union was destroyed, and every other nation around the world was hostile to the Soviet Union. So they said, screw it, since we can't, compete on the world stage with global capital, we're going to build socialism here and do our best to support, revolutions around, like China. They helped Mao.
right. Interesting. And when you say left, so could you explain that to, you said people that are more left wing than you. What is that?
In quotations? I don't have a camera, so I was doing quotations for that.
But could you like elaborate on that? Because I'm sure you see this, like people on my side of Twitter or whatever. The communists of, like, you're a well-read, educated person. You could probably debate you know way more about communism than I do, as opposed to like these people, like young teenagers on Twitter or whatever they are, that are kind of lost. Like, would you say that your idea of communism differs from the stereotypical, like, a blue-haired, very woke person?
Yes, greatly.
Okay.
Well, see, like so like I said, there's like left communism, anarcho-communism, which are anarchists, and like different variations. Maoists, sorry, like a heartburn. But like the really woke people, that's just like progressive liberals, radical liberals. They like the hammer and sickle aesthetic because it makes them edgy. Because like, I'm not a liberal because Obama's a war criminal, but like, ooh, Stalin and Lenin and Mao, they're scary. They're worse than Hitler. So they will use a hammer and sickle, but once it comes down to like what communism is, they just think that it's like a social club. Everybody holds hands and sings, Union songs. Like that's not it.
Interesting. And do you find that's like, because I'm sure your side, do you guys commiserate about this, or do you think you're the unique one that recognizes this is like just an identity for a lot of people?
No, a lot of like real communists
Okay.
see this, and it annoys us because we unfortunately are the minority,
Yeah. Well,
especially
yeah, go ahead.
conspiracy theorists, communists. We're
Yes,
an even
dude.
smaller one.
You are like the holographic Charizards. Because we have that, like, I would classify myself on the right, and like I see these boomers that are conservative Republican, and things they say, it's like you're just so uninformed. I hate even
Mhm.
being associated with you because you are literally an idiot. So I just that makes me feel better that that's also happens on the other side of the
Yeah,
political
it's still
spectrum.
the same. And so I got some libertarian friends on Twitter too,
Yeah.
and they're the same way. They really big in like Ron Paul, right? And then they see how like Ron Paul's legacy got dragged through the mud after he like, kind of stepped back from politics and started just doing the Liberty Report.
Yeah.
And then you have all these charlatans running around. And like for some reason now they think it's like cool and edgy to like, mimic neocon propaganda and like because like I really like what's his name, Scott Horton.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I've got no problem with people on the right as long as to me like being anti-war and like being like anti like CIA stuff like that's a common ground. We can discuss economics later, but the
Mhm.
main contradiction is like America's fucked up and we do evil shit around the world and our government does evil shit to us. So
So do you so how do so have you ever read of a guy named Anthony Sutton? Have you ever heard of this author?
the name sounds familiar, but
He was like a professor, and he wrote a Wall Street trilogy, and he did, so the first one's on FDR, the next one's on Hitler, and the third or whatever on the revolution in Russia. Basically, though, the point of the books is that Wall Street funded all of these
oh
events.
yeah,
They've
yeah.
right. So how do you balance that out with the Russian Revolution was funded by these Wall Street bankers? If
Oh,
so, like, if because you were saying how the CIA, is holding down communism, why would the bankers fund? Do you understand what I'm asking?
very simple. I don't know his work, so I
Yeah, yeah,
speaking out of my ass. But
yeah,
from my understanding, it wasn't really Wall Street. There was like it was mainly because it was in the context of like because I know what the whole thing is like. Oh, they gave all this money to Lenin and send him back to Russia.
yeah,
But what that was to get um because they wanted Tsarist Russia out of World War One, so that way they could, divide up Russia. So they're like, what's the best way to destabilize Russia? Send back the guy who was, causing a ruckus,
right,
who was, what's the word called, banished or
yeah,
whatever. They
yeah,
sent him. They sent him to like Germany. So the Imperial German government put him on a train, an armored train, and sent him back to Russia. And then you had like the October Revolution because the peasants didn't want to fight in the war. So that comes by because David, I used to always talk about this, and I was like, yeah, but you got to look everything in context. Is like the capitalists may have gave Lenin and the Bolsheviks this money, but ultimately it was just to destabilize Russia to get Russia out of the war, so that way they can conquer Russia. And that's what they tried to do once Lenin took over. Every single, I think it was like 17 Western countries, or I should say capitalist countries, because the West wasn't really defined back then, but they all invaded Russia at the same time, and the Bolsheviks kicked their ass.
hmm. I like that theory. That's totally possible to just to break up. So there was this a book I read, The History of Central Banking, and in the I could like pull up it. So in the
Is that
book,
the
he
one? No, that I'm sorry. That's
no,
Jekyll Island.
yeah, probably similar theories behind it. But in this book, he goes over all of these different civilizations who got brought down by central banking, and he brings up Imperial Russia, and he
Hmm.
brings up all these facts of Imperial Russia, how it was the largest producer of grain, it had more, all these things, it dominated ever economically. It also was the first that banned like child labor, and I think like Teddy Roosevelt or either him or somebody else from that era has this, who was president, had this quote how Imperial Russia is where he hopes America could be, and all these different things. And So I just wondered, do you think this revolution, did you think that there was validity to the Imperial Russia prior to the Bolshevik Revolution? Like, was it this truly evil place, or do you think propaganda pushed everybody to overthrow the czar? I don't know
Oh
if I really.
man, I get what you're saying. I might piss off some some of my people for
I
saying
love
this,
it.
but like Stalin, was it? He didn't really, off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I don't think he really talked so much about Nicholas II. But Stalin, did talk a lot about like Ivan the Terrible, right?
Okay.
And it was like one of the czars of Russia basically unified, Imperial Russia, but at the same time, Imperial Russia was like the most backwater country in all of Europe. People were dying of famine all the time, constant unrest, peasant revolts getting put down a lot because Russia's not just Slavs. They got like Khazars and Chechens and all stuff like that. So they would be subjected to state repression and stuff like that. It was kind of like the Great Russian Empire in itself was a unifying vision, even though like eternal politics was bad. And for the point, like you said, I would say the propaganda aspect. If you want to do a revolution, you got to have good propaganda, right? But
Yeah.
you can pump out all the propaganda you want, but if like the people don't notice, like yeah, things are fucked up, then they're not really going to care about the propaganda. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I could spout crazy nonsense with a $50 million budget, nobody's going to pay attention to it. But Lenin came out with like peace, land, and bread, right? And everybody was like, I want peace because of World War One. I want
Yeah.
land because I have no land. I work for the landlords, the kulaks, and then bread because nobody
Uh,
had food
yeah.
because even though Russia was a grain powerhouse, that grain was
Interesting.
like exported to Europe and stuff.
Now that's totally possible. I don't think they had huge infrastructure. So now that's a good point. I like that they exported the large to get, because the czar was the richest man in the world, wasn't he? He at the
That
time.
I don't know.
Yeah, he had Rothschild, any bank. He had billions in American banks and British banks, like
I
just
mean, it
so
would
much
make
money.
sense because it's the turn of the Industrial Revolution, and Russia's got a lot of natural resources as we
Yeah,
see today. Because the war in Ukraine, Russians, they're pretty much anything domestically produced in Russia is cheaper now since the war started, and they're like their domestic currency is pretty good.
yeah. Dude, aren't they? I don't, either they did or they will be tying the ruble to
Oh, the
gold,
gold's
right?
yeah. That's what Putin was trying to do before the war. He was buying up all this gold to like because it's kind of like what China does with their central bank, where we have the reserve, which is just a private entity owned by
Mhm.
bankers. In China, the Communist Party, so the state owns the bank, so they're in control of the money ultimately. And I think that's what Russia's trying to do.
Russia, right? China currently has a central, because I always look this up and I can never get like so China has a central bank,
Yep.
but the state is above the central bank.
Yeah, the state controls the bank.
Okay, and
So
Russia,
like
it is not like that yet.
I don't know for sure because I'm not really from like I don't know the ins and outs of like
Yeah,
the Russian
yeah.
Federation how it is currently set up today. I
Okay,
know like when the Soviet Union collapsed and like Yeltsin took over, I think it was all privatized there. I don't know if
okay. That
Putin has centralized it yet.
Yeah, I'd imagine that's because so that's my other like thing that I run into with, because for a while I like, after reading this Anthony Sutton books, I kind of was like, well, maybe communism is fine, like, because they control the system no matter what. They prop up these leaders and smash, and that's kind of at the point I'm at today with like Russia and in America. Like I don't even believe that they're actually adversaries. I think at the top they're all still pulling the strings to
Oh,
spend.
yep.
What's your theory on that, or your
So
take?
I so back in the day, right? That's how I used to see things,
Yeah,
right? Because like Illuminati, all the
yeah,
world leaders get together at Bilderberg. They're all at Bilderbergers anyway. But like once you realize like there's real like economic and like national and like ideological differences amongst all these key players. Like I would say people like Putin or Xi Jinping want to work with America, but it's basically, London and Wall Street that are like opposed because they have to share in the profits. It cuts in their profit motive. And that's
Mm,
ultimately the big thing. That's
yeah.
why you can't have a multipolar world. You have to have unipolarity so that way one country dominates the world in all the resources in international finance.
I've never heard that before. Could you explain? I mean, could you explain multipolarity versus that's the phrase you use, right?
Multipolarity and unipolarity. Well, unipolarity.
Okay.
So like unipolarity, unipolar, that is like one central country or government, right?
Yeah.
That dominates or subjects or through like colonialism or like finance capital bends
Mhm.
them to their knees. So like when the Soviet Union fell, business was booming in the 90s because the USSR was gone. There's no competition. China um, signed on to work with the United States with like the technology transfer, and they were like outwardly they were schmoozing it up with American politicians like yeah we'll go capitalist, but at their meetings they're like no, what we're going to do is we're going to make a deal with the people. We will for a short amount of time let American companies come in and exploit us, well that way we can build up productive forces and get money, right? So now in 2022 you have China is basically overtaking us, right,
Yeah.
economically,
Right.
um, what's the word, politically. They got a lot more like their Belt and Road and stuff.
Yeah.
So now, and Russia is just fucking done with like NATO. So you have like these three superpowers, right? Nuclear powers, and America is holding on to this idea of American exceptionalism where they will control the world. And multipolarity, multipolar, that means every nation is at the seat of the table and we work collectively, for win-win cooperation economically, fighting climate change, space
Mhm.
exploration, medical science, stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And so do you think we're coming to that? I would have to, I have just thinking about this thought. So this is probably the time in history where the civilizations clash because
Yep.
there can only be one true world, especially now, one true world power.
You ever hear of a like what is it called, like Seleucus's trap or something? I can't speak
No,
that.
I don't know that.
I think it's a Greek name or whatever. Either
Uh,
Greek or Roman.
well, it sounds
Uh,
great to me. So
yeah.
explain. So,
So
can you explain it?
basically, he was a philosopher back then, and he said that there's a trap that every civilization comes to when you have the hegemonic power and the new rising power, right? And the
Mm,
trap is that the hegemonic power will do everything within its power to stay in power, while the rising power tries to,
yeah.
rise up
Yeah.
on an equal footing or to overtake them. So the trap is that America wants to hold on to all of its power, but it's just not possible. So that's why we're having decoupling, economic decoupling, and all these problems with the supply chain, even after COVID.
Huh, interesting. And so are you are you pro-Russian in this Ukraine-Russian war? Like I know you don't have a Russian flag, but
I
do
used
you
to.
what's that?
I used to.
Okay, so you support you believe that even though it's because Russia you wouldn't consider it, what would you consider their economic system today?
I would consider Russia a social democratic petrol state.
Okay. So do you think that if they would replace do you think their goal is to return this to the former glory of the Soviet Union, or do you think they're going to continue down this path of semi-capitalist?
Oh, that's a tricky question because I was thinking that the other day. Because ultimately, the Russian special operation was like the brainchild of the Russian Communist Party, right?
Yeah.
And they've been telling Putin for the last 8 years, like, yo, we got to do this to like save the people of the Donbass from the Nazis in Kiev and stuff like that. But recently, Putin had a meeting with the leader of the Russian communist leader, and
Mhm.
he seemed like he was in for some of the reforms because back in the day, Putin was a member of the Communist Party and he was in the KGB. Um, and he did bad stuff back then. He kind of was a traitor, turncoat kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah, because he was Yeltsin's boy.
I didn't know. I had no idea. That's so interesting. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, but the thing with Putin is, I think Putin is more of a Russian nationalist, and wants to do what's best for Russia. So if using some kind of social democratic economic reforms would help Russia, at least domestically, he will probably do it.
What and where do you fall? Because that's it seems like globalism and communism kind of go where are you where would
See,
you consider yourself?
that's the thing, right? Because remember we talked about earlier about Great Reset and how it sounds similar. Like if you read our
Yeah.
books, globalism sounds like communism, and it does. But there's a key difference where globalism is like fascist in a way because it's really corporatist, where you have the
Mm,
corporate monopolies and finance capital have control of the government, and that's the one world government. Where I would fall, I would be a internationalist, where you have your country's sovereignty, but you respect other people's sovereignty and you work together for a better world.
no, I would love that if we could all
I
figure
know,
that.
right?
Yeah. Well, so and that your way the what you just said that Anthony Sutton, that's what his theory isn't a one world communist. It's he calls it corporate socialism,
Yeah.
where just how you're talking about how these and that's what the Rock all these people did in America with like the New Deal and stuff. They weren't trying to help the people; they were trying to close down on competition because now you're required to provide insurance if you're over whatever 50 people and they know that the small companies won't be able to do that.
Oh yeah. See, I like that libertarian aspect of that because I didn't hear that because on our side we talk about like even though like the New Deal put everybody to work with like government jobs to like rebuild the infrastructure, back in the 30s there was like millions of people marching in New York and Washington for communism because they wanted a revolution because that was back when the labor unions were big and the
Yes.
labor unions
Yes.
were all communists. So like FDR basically went to all the rich people, like the bankers and people in like the Republican and Democratic Party, and he's like, "Listen, you're either gonna have to share or they're gonna get you." And then those people who were anti-New Deal ended up becoming the new GOP because that's basically where the shift from Lincoln Republicans to
Interesting.
who would be Eisenhower.
Yeah.
So I never had that heard that aspect before. That's interesting because we always talk about how FDR saved capitalism through social democratic reforms.
So in your is you think FDR was a good president
Yeah, yes and
or
no.
okay.
I'm not a real big fan of presidents because
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of people on the left like give FDR a hard time for like the Japanese internment camps. And like I understand that's bad, but like it was World War II, and I know
Yeah.
it can be racist, but like Stalin did the same thing to German immigrants. He forcibly located them, and it's like you got to look at the context and like the history back then. But like, I mean, FDR did good things, but then again, like he was a Rockefeller guy, he was a big banking family, so it's
Yes.
like you can't really, throw your lot in with them.
No. Well, and that so that I keep bringing him up, but I'll send you the links if you're in. But he talks about how FDR created, I think it was AIC, American International Corporation, and he was on the board. And what they did is they pulled all this money together. They went to Germany and just bought. They put up the president in after World War One. He tanked the economy purposely. He got out, made all this money because they ousted him, the president of Germany. And then this AIC, FDR's company, came in, bought up all this generational wealth, all this everything for pennies on the dollar because it was why everything crashed in Germany. And so it's I always just like to ask because it seemed like you said some people they put him on a pedestal, FDR with the New Deal and stuff like that. And so I was just interested to see where you fell.
Yeah, that's interesting. Cause like that'd be weird. Cause you had if FDR did like buy out all this stuff in Germany, and then you had like Ford and like the British family, funding the Third Reich with the Bush family and stuff. Like,
Yes.
so like they purposely tanked it using like the Treaty of Versailles, and then you just build up your new fascist threat to stop the communists. And then once Hitler gets too big for his britches, you got to have World War II. It's interesting.
Yeah. Dude, isn't and that's exactly what happened. Yeah, they he got too and he gets funded by Wall Street and he gets too big and they say, "All right, that's enough. He served his purpose. We can remove him."
Yeah.
Where do
Is he?
you Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, so you said you're friends with like libertarians on the internet or whatever. Where do you think libertarianism falls short?
Um. Okay. So, um. Uh. I don't really have a problem, as I like Michael Parenti, and even he talks about like the small business owner isn't really the, the this tyrant you got to really worry about. Like,
Mm.
let it like, but it's mainly like the deregulation stuff, because like that's you got to have regulation. And I know it's like, oh, you get regulated, you got to have a license to cut hair. And they make the argument like, well, if you can't cut hair, nobody will go there. And I was like, yeah, maybe you don't need a license to cut hair unless it's very dangerous. Like, I don't know how to cut hair. So if you're killing people, then maybe. But they also say like a dentist shouldn't have like a license because, and I was like, well, I don't want some random guy jacking up my shit, giving me a root canal with a DeWalt
Yes,
drill.
yes, yes, yeah. So you think that's where that's one of the bigger issues?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're gonna have a differences when it comes to like capitalism versus socialism, but I feel like there's a way to bridge that dialectic.
Hmm. Where do you think so like cuz like I used to be a libertarian and not regulation wasn't like but one of the things I realized like I always say to my wife, like, because she's not political. She says she's a libertarian, but I always say the shopping cart. If in a libertarian society, if there was no rules, no laws, the reason how I know it wouldn't work is people can't even put their shopping cart away when this is there is no rule against it or law against it, but yet people won't go, they won't do the extra effort. So you need to have rules and regulations because sadly and unfortunately, people are people and in a perfect world, you wouldn't, but this is not. This is far from a perfect world.
Yeah, yeah, it's mainly the thing. Like, well, is sorry, my nose is stuffy.
No, dude.
um, anyway, yeah, like I don't know, like like I said earlier, with like libertarians are like being duped by neoconservatism, and the same thing's happening on the left with like this whole like right wing populism. Now, I'm not gonna come out and say like, oh, just because your drunk uncle at Thanksgiving isn't socially progressive or whatever, that he's a vile creature and we have to put him up against the wall or shit like that, or throw
Yeah.
him in the gulag. Like, no, 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 no. Um, but like when Marjorie Taylor Greene says something about the FBI, that even if it sounds good, it's bullshit. It's politicking.
Yeah.
Like, and people are fanning like, oh my god, MTG is this great, MAGA revolutionary, and she's opposed. It's like, no, no,
Based.
no, no, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, based. Or like Tucker Carlson, and they follow in this trap because everybody's so sick of like woke culture that they're like, oh, based right populism, fuck the wokes. And I'm just like, these people are like Peter Thiel, Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson. Like, you people are falling for a psyop and you can't fucking see it, and it's so irritating.
Oh, dude, it's amazing. It's both sides. It's like insane that like how Tucker Carlson's dad, didn't he work for like Radio Free America
Yeah,
pushing
Tucker
propaganda?
Carlson's dad was a propagandist for the CIA. And that's what I don't get, bro. Real shit. Like, they're like, oh man, Tucker can say based and right things. Tucker's right about Russia. And I'm like, why are you asking the question to yourself that like, why is the world's like America's number one news host allowed to say these things on Fox News, owned by Rupert Murdoch, who is a
Right.
neoconservative who owns the Washington Post? Like, don't you think that's weird? And they're like, oh no, because he doesn't get advertisers. Like, well, who gives a shit? They still write his paychecks. He didn't like he didn't like spend like cheering on the Iraq War in the early 2000s, and now he's just like, I'm a based, you know, American right populist.
That's such a good point too. If you look back at old Tucker, oh my god. Didn't he work for CNN, right?
Yeah, he's like um Rachel Madcow's like mentor.
Yes.
They're like best friends. And there you go. You got the fake left-right paradigm.
Right.
You
Well,
have the liberal crazy lady, and then you have the base right populist Tucker, and they have fucking cocktails every Sunday together. So
right. Well, he reached out to Hunter Biden to get his son into Georgetown or something like, and I don't think I do think like in 2022, I see more and more people are like, they'll say, oh, both sides are corrupt. And that's awesome that people can
yes,
say that, but they won't be able to give up like their three heroes, whether that's on the right, if that's Tucker, Trump, and DeSantis, and
yep,
whoever it is on the left. They can't make that jump. Have you seen that?
yeah. We have it on the left too. People will not break up with AOC or Bernie Sanders or hell, even sometimes depending on like how liberal these so-called leftists are. Like even like Obama, Kamala
Mm,
Harris, Pete Buttigieg, like they don't listen, they don't care. They think they call me a fascist for like telling them the truth. Like, well, this guy, like Joe Biden when he was a senator, he was like putting all these black people in jail. Shut up, man. You want Trump to win? Are you a fascist? Like, I don't want either to win. Like, why are you engaging in bourgeois politics? Like, it's not
right.
going to help you. You want a third party? Do that.
Interesting. I love it, dude. How do you, so what differentiates you in National Socialism? What's the biggest different? Is it the fascist leader? Is that because yeah,
Oh, okay. So back in the 30s, um, they weren't called the Communist Party. They were called the German Social Democratic Party.
okay,
And then there was a break from there. And like, so like you had like the German communists were about to win, right? But then you had the National Socialist Party just threw socialism behind nationalism to like trick people to vote for him.
interesting.
Because if you look at their policies, the Nazis were corporatists. They were all for privateering. They basically got, as soon as they got into power, they got rid of all the labor unions, increased the working day, lowered wages, and I
Interesting.
even think they reinstituted child labor.
Wow, amazing. I never heard that either. But you're right. They were definitely. I mean, their big corporations ran. They were number two of Hitler's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
this is like the thing. Like people think fascism is just like I said, like your drunk uncle who made a racist joke at Thanksgiving, right? Sure, it was awkward and you may not like it, but like no, fascism isn't when people say mean things. I mean, it's a fascists say mean things, but like fascism is like a real ideology. It's corporatism. As Mussolini said, fascism can be best described as corporatism. That's
yes.
when private corporations and the state merge to create a fucking technocratic police state, basically.
No,
The
and he was, and I know so little. I know all I know about Mussolini is he kicked out Freemasonry like Mustache Man did.
Yep.
Was Mussolini Italy? Would you consider that corporatist as well?
Yeah, that was Mussolini's explicit thing because Hitler tried to hide it with like the socialist thing, and
Okay.
like he would lie when he'd be like, Germany for the workers or whatever, and then when they were writing legislation, they were taking all the money from Krupp and Ford they could.
Yeah.
But Mussolini was outwardly because Mussolini used to be a socialist, so then he got really into like futurism, and then
Really?
yeah, futurism's weird.
I've never heard that. But do you have like a third grade definition of it, or should I look it up later?
You'd have to look it up later. It's like a weird, like kind of like a future. It's like if you took like steampunk but like modernized it and you put it like art and culture.
Yeah, they tended with a diverse range of supporters, artistic and political direction of the movement. Socialist, communist, and anarchist walked out in the Milan Futurist Congress.
Yeah,
Interesting. Dude. I'm gonna have to look this up.
yeah. It's one of those wacky do fucking ideologies.
That's so wow. And there was even anyway. Okay, and then but that so in have you ever heard this theory that like every World War One was the war to end monarchy so they could institute constitutional republics, and they all the revolutions have been have overthrown the monarchy for the reason of instituting a constitutional republic, because that is the most easy government for corporations to come in and dominate, or banks to come in and dominate. Have you ever heard that theory?
I've heard it, but I don't know how much weight I put into it because,
Okay.
like, just because you can find like a money trail, because obviously the rich people are going to want to hedge their bets, right?
Yeah.
But like World War I was an imperialist war because all these European countries had all these colonies, and basically they were because like the domestic market ran dry, so the only way they could, you know, acquire more capital was to extract resources from third world countries and then process the materials in their home country to make
Mm.
profit.
Yeah.
And then once you have all like 7, 10 nations all fighting for different small countries in like Africa and like Asia, land runs out, and then you got to fight for and see what you can grab.
I like that theory. So it was more over their where they colonized, and where it was over
Yeah,
profits.
just because the ruling class is the ruling class and they have the same interests, right? With like capitalist, you know, monetary domination, they're still very individualist. So like, if capitalist A and capitalist B are friends on the outside, capitalist A is still trying to figure out how he can, take something from capitalist B.
Very true. Very true. Yes. So I'm sure you've heard this phrase, real communism has never been tried. And so I would like you to explain what that says to you. And also, could the same argument be put on, has real capitalism ever been tried?
Real communism has been
Okay.
tried, and it's still alive.
In
Um,
China, is that where you're?
well, China's more like a mixed economy
Okay.
type of situation. Well, I get technically real communism hasn't been tried because by definition, communism is a stateless, classless society with no money and all that.
Yeah.
So we could say real socialism, yes, right?
Okay. Okay.
Like the USSR, China, even current China, the DPRK, which is North Korea, and then
Ooh, I want to talk about that.
Vietnam, Laos. But then when you have, because I hear libertarians say that all the time, like
Yeah.
true capitalism has never been tried because they have this dream of like mercantilism.
That's so true. That's exactly it.
And it's like, well, I mean, like, you may like a more favorable capitalism, or, they used to say like capitalism with a smiley face or whatever. Like, it's still capitalism, right? And this is like you may be a small business owner. Now feel for them, right? You're just trying to, make some money, provide for you and your family, and you have like a nice business. You're the guy who owns the plumbing business in your small town, and
Yeah.
you're a pillar in the community. You donate money to charity. Like, that's fine. I'm not talking about you. And I'm talking about the big boys. You will never compete with the big boys because that's capitalism. They have it rigged against you.
Mm, I like that. Yeah, and that's the one thing that I was fascinated with, when I told you I had the other communist guy. Like, when he was reading me these things that Marx and Engels wrote, they're right, dude. They're absolutely right that this, like, they were dead on where capitalism always leads.
Yeah.
But it's just hard, and whether it's propaganda or whatever. I also view that their system is difficult to conceive as well. But so you're a big North Korean guy. And
Oh,
I saw, and I'm so excited you reminded me of this, because I wanted to talk to you about this. So I watched this awesome, I can't remember the documentary. It's
did
some,
my friends in North Korea, or is like a Korean lady who like went to the North because she's like an American South Korean? Is you talking about that?
no, it's one. So it's like, I don't know I don't think it was Vice, but it was like it was saying, it highlights this one guy from Spain. He works in North Korea, is a big wig in their government. And he's saying how everything, they got it all wrong, that North Korea is a great place. And in the documentary, they're kind of like saying, like, look how big liars they are. But what is your take? Is North Korea just propaganda, like, towards the Americans of how evil it is? Or is the starvation real stories? Or what is your take on North Korea?
Okay. Everything is you got to look at the context with this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like North Korea, like being this like evil authoritarian genocidal state, like if you get like the wrong haircut they're going to kill you. No, that's all bullshit. That's all bullshit. They have schools, people laugh, they have amusement parks, water parks, they have restaurants, they have high-rise buildings, they have universities, they have big industry, they have textile, like they're a functioning state. North Korea, though, does have a problem with uh, food production, I think it is, not food scarcity, because North Korea occupies the north. All
Right.
of the arable farmland is in the south. That's where all the rice paddies are, right?
Yes.
North Korea is very rocky, and with all the sanctions since basically before the Korean War, it's very hard to get like most of the time. Like the government's doing more now since they got the nuclear weapons, so they can spend less on the military, more on like industrial production. So now they have like more
Interesting.
tractors.
Never
But
thought
for
of
the
it that way.
longest time, they've been using like ox and like plows,
Yeah.
everything hand, right? But North Korea is based because like you get free housing, education's free, healthcare's free. The government on holidays they give you like um meat, free beer.
Wow.
I think every month North Korean men get like beer rations, so you get free beer from the government.
Hilarious, dude. So in like in North Korea, so my wife is she's adopted, but she's from South Korea.
Hmm.
So I love reading about Korea, but and I get I don't people that listen to me if they laugh, they're gonna be like, "Are you're an idiot?" But I do see like there are some benefits to this, and I just can't don't know what like you're saying. I don't know what's propaganda and what's not, but there is some nobility to like all working together. What they call a juki, right? Like just
Juche.
being a good person or a good North Korean. Is that
Well,
what
Juche is
Juche?
Juche is it's like because you have Marxism Leninism, which is basically just like communism slash Stalinism. Terms
Okay.
are intertwined. Juche is like in addition to it, where it's like very like Korean centric. Like it uses a lot of like Korean mysticism, like and like Confucianism, and it's
Okay.
like a very like traditional Korean idea where it has a lot of aspects of like tradition, and that's why a lot of people on the left think Korea is a fascist state because they're very like traditional. Like the women wear like the
Yeah.
gowns and the men wear like nice clothes and stuff,
Yeah. The
and they do
hanboks.
yeah. So Juche is like single-minded unity. So because they
Ooh,
face tons of hardship, they collectively all work together to persevere to build socialism. It's basically an easy way to put
interesting.
it.
And that was poetic, Jim. That was good. I like that.
That's what they said, not me.
Well, you don't need to tell anybody that. That was good. So so then the propaganda about them starving and how people disappear from their family will disappear if you speak out against the regime. What's your take on that stuff?
Okay, the when like I said, it's no secret because of sanctions and not having, arable farmland, there is a food problem. They're working on it with like greenhouses and like
Mhm.
rabbit farming and stuff. Um, Now it is authoritarian, so we as true Marxist Leninists, we have a different view on quote unquote authoritarianism, where it's like you have quote unquote free speech, or I should say freer speech. But if you were to speak out against the government and challenge the revolution, then you might get a knock on the door. You probably won't get disappeared, but the secret police might want to have a talk with you,
Yeah.
which is understandable in the context of a country that is constantly trying to be infiltrated by the CIA or overthrown by NGOs, stuff like that. The same thing happened in East Germany. The same thing happened in like post-revolutionary Russia with like Stalin's purges and stuff like that. Michael Parenti had this great quote, and he's a Marxist-Leninist professor from back in the day. Like he was championing socialism in the height of Reaganism, right?
Wow.
He didn't give a fuck, and he worked at like
Damn, dude. I'm surprised he kept his job then, but
yeah,
interest
he was a
continued.
professor. I think he
Must have
graduated
been
from
tenured.
Yale at Princeton too.
Wow.
But he had a quote, and he was like, the day after the revolution, the liberals will be calling for human rights and free speech for the fascists. So
And whenever it's like old boomers will say, like, oh, bad China, bad North Korea, we have free speech. No, you don't.
Yeah, we don't have free
Talk,
speech
what are you
here.
talking about, dude? We can't, there's so many things we can't talk about. I don't want to, I can't talk about them now because I'll be kicked off of my life will be over if I say
Exactly.
certain things.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I hate that argument because that's a piss poor argument. It's
That's
the same thing.
is the way I look at things is like everybody when it comes to politics is a hypocrite, but the people I respect own up to it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're like America's so authoritarian because we live in a police state, and then you could be like, well, North Korea, da, 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 China, da da da, and I'm like, yeah, I know, but that's okay because I understand the context behind it. At least,
Yeah.
for me, I can justify it to some extent. There's some
Yeah.
things I'm like, well, but then again, I don't live there, and it's not a problem. And like people think like I see like uh, China or North Korea or like Cuba, and I want to like copy like one to one to like how I want America. Like, no, America is totally different. We got a different culture. We got different values.
Fair point.
This is just economics, right? This is an economic ideology.
Yeah. Right. Oh, I think I've never, that's like an important distinction to make.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're right. It's an economic, and it's almost tell me if because I never heard that either. It's almost like now, like people that would be classified as communists, they're combining this economic system with like social issues, right?
Yeah, and that is a part of it,
Okay.
but like I'm okay with the like I'm not hyper woke and I don't like the woke people,
Yeah.
but like I'm against racism and bigotry
Right.
and stuff like but that's like it's like a normal thing like every person should be,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't care if like you and your buddies get drunk and say a racist joke, ha ha ha, whatever. That doesn't make you a fascist. Be careful who you say it around, but I don't that's not what I'm worried about because my whole thing is like I want a politically backward assembly worker in Kentucky who waves the Confederate flag to understand that he has the same material interests as like a trans person that works at Wendy's. We're
Mm,
all the working class,
mm,
and sometimes we have to realize like once everybody's economics and their material conditions rise, all like this hatred stuff starts to go off to the side. I mean, it'll always be there to some aspect, but like this like new culture war we're in over like drag queens, like I just don't care about that. Like it doesn't bother you. Like you can be pro drag queen reading hour, anti drag queen reading hour. What is that doing? How are you paying your bills? Your rent's going up, your wages are going down, milk is like flying
yeah.
off the shelves. I went to the grocery store the other day to get cheese. All the cheese is gone. So I don't understand. Like this is the problem.
Right. Well, I think we all like, especially our millennials and whatever, we know there's something not right. Like this
Mhm.
system is broken. I think the biggest divide is how do we get to what we know is possible. We just are all have different ideas how to get to that point.
Well,
But
there's
yeah,
that's a good point because we did live. We were young during the recession,
yeah, too young. Yeah,
and
I
we're
was
we're seeing it replay out. So we have to live through two recessions. The Zoomers are just love themselves in TikTok. So they'll learn. They'll learn once mommy and daddy lose their job. A lot of millennials are just. I think they're just broken mentally. That's why
I
they're so
agree.
crazy. They're broken mentally. They're like uh, mentally retarded children in a nice sense,
Right.
like the medical definition, like they're
Yes.
stunted.
Yeah.
They're stunted adults.
Well, dude, I mean, it makes no sense. Like, our parents, they bought a house, or our grandparents bought a house, one person working, and our parents they were able to, work to pay for college or
Yeah.
work part and all these things that are not feasible
No,
in the past 15, 20 years. They won't happen.
that's another boomer thing I have a problem with is they're always like, oh, you good for nothing kids, go buy a house. Like, I'm sorry, a 3-bedroom ranch with one bathroom is like almost $300,000 where I live. I don't, and I have shitty credit because I had to go through bankruptcy because I bought a shitty car and it cost me
Right.
all my money. So
Exactly.
it's like, yeah, okay. And let me see your. I think there was like a college transcript, like a receipt that was found in like an old library book somewhere,
Okay.
and like a year's tuition was like $700.
Yeah, I posted one. Yeah, dude, it's lit like a credit. It was insane. Like in 1973, you could pay for I had, what the average wage was or weekly salary, what a house cost, what and all these things. I mean, it was, every basically just multiply all the expenses by like 100 and
Yeah,
that with the same salary. That's essentially
exactly.
what it is.
Not even the same salary because when I was in college, when I was in my one of my classes, I think it was like sociology. The guy was
Mhm.
talking about like in like 1960, the minimum wage is like $2 or something like that. Like the medium hourly wage or the minimum wage is like $2.60, and that's worth more than like today's minimum wage because they never adjusted for inflation.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense because like you see these like, oh, dad worked at the plant and mom was a grocery bagger, and they had a big two-story, four-bedroom house, two cars in the garage.
Yes.
It's like good luck trying to do that now with BlackRock buying all the properties that turn into rental properties for the Great Reset.
Yeah, it's impossible, dude. It's a liter So I'm trying to think how I can word this question. So if I could, obviously the CIA spent billions of dollars to fight communism. So I could totally, like I said earlier, I could totally agree that they're holding communism down. But I guess what I struggle with to accept that that's like not the goal of these banking elites is, I don't know how I'm trying to word this.
I get what you're
I
saying.
struggle. I
I get what you're
struggle
saying. Um,
reconciling these two.
I would say that you're right, where it's not necessarily they're defeating communism because, communism, right? They're defeating communism because it fucks with their profits. When the
Okay.
working people rise up and build a state for themselves and they push the capitalists out or limit their power like they do in China, because China has billionaires, but Jack Ma steps out of line. He's still missing. I haven't seen anything about Jack Ma.
Right. For a
And
long time you didn't. Yeah.
they constantly like the other day, not the other day, like a couple months ago, they had a bunch of I think they were bankers that were charged with corruption, and that's capital punishment in China. The state puts you to death.
Right. Right.
So there's a fear. They do it out of fear. Plus, it does like if everybody's opposed to you, then you can't exploit them.
Yeah. So do you think like how about social credit scores and things that go along with like China's setup? Do you see that as you would see that as I'm guessing a negative, right?
Uh, well,
Or no? Maybe not.
the social credit system is not this dystopian nightmare like Zero Hedge would have you believe or something like that. It's mainly geared toward like rich people because if you look at like the punishments, it's like your kid, like if you're if you litter, your kid can't go to like a private school, or like you can't buy if you smoke on a train, you can't buy like first class tickets and stuff like that. Or if you're like a disrupting something in the state, you can't buy plane tickets. And
Right.
so it's like that. And like to like fix it, you either pay a ticket or you like grab a broom and you like sweep up a street.
And again, this logic, like you're right, it does sound dystopian, but if everybody, I mean, look at the 50s, 40s America. If we all took a little pride in the area we lived, we could really already, that's like a one step we could take to move our country forward and everyone to live in a clean, safe area. So I'm not like anti doing things for your, I don't know if I like the idea of like tech
Oh yeah,
watching me, but
I don't like it either. Like cuz like I said, I'm not Chinese. Like I'm American. Like I don't
yeah,
like that, but China's different. Different culture with stuff like that. So
yeah,
that's something I wouldn't adopt, but I'm not like I don't have anxiety over China's social credit system. Now, if America adopted a social credit system, then I'd be worried because I know what they would do. Like,
ooh, that's
like, oh, you're an internet dissident, whether you were at January 6th or you have a stolen profile picture on Twitter. Good luck trying to access your bank account now. Bye. Like, I don't know. No, 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 no. Because it was what it, because I have this argument because like my girlfriend's like a Trump person, right?
no way. Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Yeah. But,
That is hilarious, dude.
so she's like a capitalist or whatever, likes capitalism. And so we always have these arguments about China, and I'm just like, listen, the difference between America and China is the class nature of the state, right? And unless you're a communist, it's really hard to grasp that because in China, the ruling class exists. I wouldn't say ruling class. I'd say like the billionaire class, capitalist class exists in China, but they
Mhm.
don't control the state. The state's controlled by the party, which is put into by the people. And they have all, like, people think that Xi Jinping is a dictator or stuff like that. Like, there's plenty of videos you can watch on how China's government's set up. You basically have these little councils, like little groups that go around door to door in all these villages and these cities, and they teach you what's going on, and then you pick your leaders through there, and then those people get elected, and then those elected officials elect like the national congress, like their big government.
Okay.
I mean, China isn't a one-party state. They got liberals, they got capitalists. I even think they got like a weird religious party, like a Christian party.
Do they
No, I'm
really?
sorry.
So
Yeah,
that
no, sorry, that's North Korea. They have a Christian party.
so that's another like they'll say communism stifles religion and Christianity.
Nope, just Mormonism, Scientology, radical Islam, like all the culty religions, like the
Okay.
Falun Gong and stuff. Like China
Yes.
will put up with that. But you
Well,
could be a Christian, you could be a Muslim, you could be a Jew.
yeah. Well, and that's so funny, the Falun Gong, because the Epic Time, I mean, the CIA, I
Yep.
think you would agree the CIA created Epic Times, or if people haven't heard that, it's pretty likely they're at least funding the Epic Times, and that's their big the found. I used to I there was this like conspiracy channel, Edge of Wonder
Oh,
back.
Edge of Wonder, yep.
Oh
And
my
then
dude, so you know,
yep.
yes. Yeah.
Because I used to, because like I don't know, like because like I hate watch like David, not David, like David Wilcock. Like I hate watching
Oh
because
my
he's so fucking
God, dude.
stupid. But he's always on Edge of Wonder. And then I was like, oh wait a minute, I know this like company they work for, and I was like Googled it up. I'm like, oh yep, that's like an arm of the Epoch Times, which is Falun Gong.
Yes.
And
But
like
that
you ever see like those Shenwei like play?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's Falun
I've
Gong
read
too.
it.
That's
Yeah.
how they make their money.
Yeah, they slave labor these people into doing these
Yep.
acrobats. But that Fallon, the Edge of Wonder, they would push that organ harvesting of Falun
Yep.
Gong people. And
100% bullshit.
yeah, and I looked into this, and Falun Gong's this weird cult religion with like a big alien, and they're just nutty people, you know.
Yeah,
So
it's like a it's like a break off from like it's like a yoga cult, something like that.
it's a
Like
fair
traditional
description.
Chinese
Yeah.
medicine yoga cult. And then like they were like growing in number, and then like they were like plotting to like overthrow like the Chinese Communist Party, and they're like, no, you can't do that. Bye. And then they ran away to like New York, and they built like a university in New York, like an accredited university.
Yeah.
And then they just get all this money from the CIA, just everything, even like the Dalai Lama. They're in the same boat of the Dalai Lama. You know, the CIA gives money to the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama talks shit about, oh Mao, Mao. Oh. But the Tibetan monks had slaves. Like they would give like diplomats like skin suits made out of their slaves.
Jeez,
You
dude.
could look at pictures of it.
So since you brought up Mao, we can like finish in 10, 15 minutes. So I saw this awesome thread, and I'll send you the thread if you want. But so it talks about, I think you can see the screen. So is the there he's
Oh,
talking
Red
about,
Dragon.
have you seen this before, this graph?
No, but I know about Mao's grandkids.
Well, it's saying basically how when the revolution, so like the elite families, they lost in Mao's revolution. Then the people from the non-elite families rose, and already by now it's gone back to like it's not the same levels as it was at because it was too big, too large of a gap. But they still came back to on top. And I don't know what my question is that, but I just found that interesting.
Does it talk about like Mao's like from the city to the country in that thread?
No, I don't think not. It didn't go into that much. What does that
Okay.
mean?
Okay, so like the same thing happened well, it happened to Xi, but that's a different circumstance because like his dad was like opposition to Mao. But they basically took like cuz they didn't well the peasants killed the landlords, but like the Communist Party didn't like murder like all the children of like the elites. They sent them to re-education. So it
Interesting.
would make sense that after re-education they would still be involved with the party politic.
Interesting. So, do you like so that because you could like now I could see how if there was a revolution, how you would go after journalists and
Yep.
all because they're fueling the fire of all the issues. so that it's funny that I see where that. So do you think that these revolution, like Mao's revolution, was it as violent? Did as many people die as Western
Uh, to quote
sources?
Mao, revolution is not a dinner party, right?
Ooh, I like it.
Revolution is not love. Communism is a hammer used to smash your enemies, right?
That's his quote.
That's a couple quotes. I think
Damn,
I fucked up the revolution is love one, or revolution is not love.
that's
But yeah, he
official
said
stuff.
revolution's not a dinner party. Communism is a hammer to which to smash your enemies, or
Ooh,
communism is a tool to smash your enemies. Like, yeah, no, revolutions are bloody. That's I don't like people who fetishize revolution
yeah.
because that you're just an insane person that wants to kill people. Like, I don't want to kill people. I want to have a revolution, but like I don't want to like kill my neighbors just
Right,
because they
right.
disagree with me on small issues or big issues, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, like the peasants went a little crazy because back in the day, like the landlords, the farmland owners, brutalized the peasants. So when the revolution happened, I think they just shot them all in the head. So
Well, you get caught up in the moment, dude.
yeah. And then the Cultural Revolution had the same kind of thing, where like the students went a little crazy, but then they had to put a stop to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I can't remember the author, but he talks about the French Revolution and how that I know it's not a communist revolution, but it was the
Marx
same.
loved it.
Yeah, well, and people they just got wrapped up into it and they
Yep.
started doing insane shit, and
Yep.
it was that it's like human nature, I guess, to
Yep, atrocities happen, but at the same time, revolutions are bloody, and
yeah.
you can criticize it all you want, but what happened happened, and I think the end result definitely outweighed where China was before. So
And isn't that so? I think that's like how Taiwan is. Because I correct me if I'm wrong. I'm weak on China history, but wasn't the Chiang Kai-shek or whatever? He took his
Chiang
troops to
Kai-shek,
he
CIA guy. Yep.
yes, the CIA drug dealer. He
Yep.
took his troops to and all his supporters to Taiwan. That was like their stand, and that's how that's how China and Taiwan separated, right?
Yeah. So yeah, basically what happened is like Mao, like Chiang Kai-shek's father
Yeah.
was basically set to like ruled China, like lead the revolution in China, and he was friends with Mao, so like the
No
Communist Party.
way.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but like him and Chiang Kai-shek's dad and Mao were friends, right? And then he died because he was a doctor and he was like against like like these peasant religions and stuff. He wanted like modernize China, and like he was friends with Mao. And he was even invited to like the Communist International, even though he wasn't a communist. They invited
Yeah.
him or whatever. But then he died, and then Chiang Kai-shek took over, and then basically Mao and Chiang Kai-shek had a bunch of skirmishes. Then they made like a temporary alliance during World War II to
Okay.
fight the Japanese,
Yeah.
and then after World War II, they had a civil war, and Mao and the communists pushed Chiang Kai-shek to the ocean, and then he got on a boat and went to I don't remember the old name Taiwan used to be. There used to be something before they went to
Okay.
Taiwan, and
Yeah.
then they just set up shop in Taiwan, and America was just like giving them guns and money for drugs,
That's it
and
though.
then Nixon went over there, and they were like, actually, no, Taiwan is China. So all this stuff Biden does, and any president or any government official wants to like antagonize China. I mean, they're literally doing to China what NATO was doing to Russia with Ukraine, and it's not going to end well.
No.
China has a lot of remorse. Like I was like, well, if they, Malaysian flight, Speaker of the House, like then that's on you. Like I don't want to go to war because you guys are being stupid.
Agreed, dude. So that will end with these like two questions. Where what's gonna happen between these our three powers here? And we'll do that question, and then I got one more. So
All right.
what do you think happens with China, with Russia in regards to America?
I see I have a nihilist view, straight black pilled. Russia, China, military alliance, World War III, we all die, right?
Okay.
Um, and then we have like a happy thing is like everybody realizes that we all need to work economically cooperatively to like combat like climate change or end famine or something. Then
Yeah.
it's not good. I don't have
Uh,
high hopes, right?
okay. So it's bleak. It's the outlook is bleak.
Yeah, because the multipolar world is going to be born regardless. America's trying to smother in the crib, but it's not going to happen. China's too powerful. Russia's too independent.
Yeah.
Europe is too dependent on Russian oil. America's too dependent
Yeah.
on Chinese manufacturing.
Yeah.
Australia's too dependent on on Chinese iron. So
That was a great. I never heard that. I like that the multipolar, and I'm going to butcher the words. So my last question though is, so let's say things go Jim Jones's way in America, and we could have what would you like to see from America? What changes? Like, would communism actually work here? Could you brain or propagandize enough old boomers to be convinced that this evil isn't so evil?
I think the boomers are lost.
Okay.
Just gotta bide time. I love my grandparents to death, but no, boomers are
Yeah.
lost. Too poison pilled from the Cold War.
Yeah.
Talking to them. But like what I would want for like if I got elected to president in 2024 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
First thing I would do, first thing, boom, abolish the CIA, right?
Love it.
Boof up my security because I ain't getting hit with no heart attack gun. But second thing I do, I will institute a corruption investigation, an insider trading investigation on all members of Congress. And if they're
Ooh,
found guilty, gone. Special
love it.
elections.
All right.
Then my plan is to have America join China's Belt and Road Initiative to re-industrialize America. Let's knock the rust off the Rust Belt, right?
Interesting.
Bring back manufacturing here. And then I want to go with fusion energy or fission energy, whatever that
Yeah.
is, because
Yeah.
solar panel
Right.
they're not going to work. But if
No.
you do what China does with the artificial sun, you can build that. Boom, basically free energy, right? And then I will put a government jobs program because Biden's infrastructure bill sucks ass and it's all privatized.
Yeah.
No, no, no. We're going to take a little piece from FDR and we will pay, private contractors good money, but they have to follow the regulations and build the infrastructure.
Dude, you got
Oh,
like a 10
free
point
college,
plan.
free college,
Free college. All
free
right.
housing.
Dude. I mean, I agree. Like, that's the thing. They make us seem like all of we're so different on the political spectrum. I think most people would say like people deserve to be able to go to college or all these things that you named. I don't think people would say that's outrageous, except like the boomers. But beyond them, most people would
The
agree
old
with that.
saying, it's the economy, stupid, right? I like to
Yeah.
say it's the economics, stupid, right? Like what benefits your life is economics, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I see it. That's how communists should see it. And if
Yeah.
communists could see that, get back to like William Z. Foster days in the 30s when we were leading fucking hundreds of thousands of people in the streets demanding workers' rights. The reason why you have unions, communists. The reason why you have Labor Day, communists. The reason why you have an 8-hour workday, communists. The reason why children don't work in the mines anymore, communists.
That's fair. Yeah. And you also have didn't on May 4th is that Labor or I was trying to make a joke. Just forget it. Just ignore it. So last thing, so like obviously people that listen to me, they're not going to be very receptive, but is there any books or sources you could recommend that would be like if they were interested in learning more that are give an honest, unbiased like or book or YouTube channels or anything like that that helped you find your beliefs?
If you're scared of communism or curious about communism, I would read Socialism, Utopian and Scientific by Frederick Engels and Capitalism, the Highest Stage of Imperialism by Lenin, right?
Okay.
If you want to have like a more anti-imperialist, pro-communist thing that would kind of like pertain to like America, I don't know if there's a PDF of it, but there are lectures. Yeah, actually, you can just look up Michael Parenti on YouTube and just watch his lectures. That was a big thing for me. And if you're scared of Stalin, you believe all these myths that Stalin killed a gorillion people and sent the asteroid to kill the dinosaurs. Grover Furr, his books, they're really dense, but they systematically go through all first-hand sources
No way.
and exonerate Stalin.
Dude, I'm gonna have to check those out because that's interesting. Ooh, would love
Now,
it. What was that called?
what? Oh,
That the last guy you mentioned.
Grover Fur. Grover, like the Muppet, and then
Okay.
Furr.
Got him. All right. I love it, dude. I can't wait to, and I think that shouldn't be too hard. Again, if he's right, that shouldn't be too hard for conspiracy minded people to see that propaganda goes both sides, both ways.
Yep.
We're just barely piecing together what the truth is. So Jim, where could people find, or can they support you? Could they follow you? All those good things.
I guess if you like what I said, or you're curious about communism or just conspiracy, I know we'll have to do this again and actually talk about conspiracies next time.
Oh my
But
God, yes, dude. You're right. You're absolutely right.
but you can just follow me at Juche Kool-Aid, and then I don't have like a Patreon or anything or a
Yeah.
podcast, so.
Yeah. Well, dude, it was. I really enjoyed. We should definitely do it again, and we would. I'm sure everyone would love to hear more about the conversations you and your wife have on a daily basis. But thanks for
Yeah,
coming on.
we don't actually talk about politics that much unless we're really drunk. We just
Right.
like to rib each other.
That's a good. That's definitely a good rule to live by for most people. But
Yeah.
thanks for coming on, dude. I
Oh,
really
thank
enjoyed
you.
it, and
Yeah, me
we'll
too.
talk soon.
All right, cool.
All right, Jim. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, everybody. Peace out.